Well, today's episode titled The Hardest Thing I've Ever Done, Moving Shanna to Memory Care Facility. I did this about 18 months ago. Welcome to the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast. I'm your host, Ken Cardita. In this podcast, I share with you my experiences and learnings from the last 13 years as I've walked by the side of my dear wife, Shanna, as she progresses through Alzheimer's disease. It is my desire that you'll find joy and peace while learning to live with your loved one's disease, and not let the disease define you or your loved one. The Surviving Alzheimer's podcast is brought to you by Ascending Minds, LLC. In this episode, I'll talk about the days leading up into the move, what actually happened the day of the move, and the first couple of weeks to the month or so afterwards. I'll go over a wide range of emotions and feelings that I experienced at that time, and what I've come to learn about them as time has gone on. I'll also explain how the gift of time and healing has enhanced and it continues to shape my perspective and feelings about this experience. Finally, I'll discuss one of the tenderest mercies that both Shanna and I have ever experienced on this journey as I visited her for the first time after moving her just a few days later. First, I'd like to share a reader comment. This reader, Rochelle, left this recommendation on the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast page sometime last month, shortly after episode 5 was published. She wrote, "I listened to all 5 episodes in 2 days!" I really felt your honesty as you talked about your experience with Alzheimer's. My mother has been diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. She keeps asking me when the medication is going to start working and when she will get better. Thank you for the tools you have already shared. I look forward to hearing more about your journey and learning more about being the best caregiver I can be. I know that our journey will be different than yours, but knowing I'm not alone helps calm the unknown. Thank you, with 5 exclamation points. Well, Rochelle, thank you for taking the time to share your comments and feedback on the podcast. As always, I invite all listeners to leave their thoughts, experiences, and comments on our Facebook page. I'll leave a link to that in the episode description. So what was it like a couple weeks prior to the actual move? I had a lot of different feelings. I was actually recovering from kidney stone surgery. I was very fortunate to have Shanna's older sister, Sue, around to take care of Shanna for those 5 days. We had scheduled her coming out because my band was playing a gig and I needed someone to kind of sit with Shanna while I was busy setting up and playing. It was fortunate that Sue was out here at that time. And like I said, Shanna was able to see my band play, and it would be the last time that she'd ever watch me perform with my band. This is what I wrote in my journal around that time. I'm feeling better each day about moving Shanna. I think we are doing this just at the right time. With her struggling with just going to the bathroom and following any of my directions, I am really struggling. I just want to be her friend. I still get sad, and I start to break down. But I get over it a little bit quicker each day. Now, as I reread my journal, there were so many sweet and tender moments in that last week. And I'm grateful that I recorded them in the journal. I now realize that I would do well to reread the joyful things from time to time when I need my spirits lifted. This following event was just days before the move. I recorded this in my journal. I just had the most incredible experience with Shanna. We spent the last hour sitting in the backyard reading together. I looked at her for a little bit while she was reading, seeing her as Heavenly Father sees her. And then I looked into her eyes and told her some very heartfelt messages. These were some of the things that I told her. how much that I truly loved her, how I appreciated all that we have been through together over the years, how much I admired how she has grown over the years in battling her depression and low self-esteem. I told her how well she has dealt with Alzheimer's and her decline and challenges over the last 10 years. I told her that it has been an honor to take care of her, but that I needed more help. I couldn't do it anymore by myself. I told her that others would be helping her with all of the necessary help that she needed, but that I would still be her friend and still be around. Finally, I encouraged her not to be afraid to make decisions and choices when asked, that maybe she became just a little too dependent on me. As I said all of these things, she nodded, and I really felt that she understood everything that I was trying to say. It was as if I almost told her that she would be moving and we would be living apart, but still be a big part in each other's lives, but not in those exact words. It was a very, very special moment. Unfortunately, words do not convey the emotion or sacredness of that experience. I hope that this moment gets burned into my soul so that I can recall it in the days and weeks ahead. I have to admit, when I reread this, it brought tears to my eyes even today. It was a very special moment that happened right before a big change in our lives. Now, there were some final preparations to be done in the last couple of days, making sure the furniture got shipped and delivered, purchasing some odds and ends like sheets and other things. I was very grateful for Shanna's sister Sue for helping me in shopping. And then my daughter Emily, she came a couple days beforehand, and she actually helped me set up Shanna's room. This is what I wrote the Friday before the Monday that she moved. Emily and I spent a few hours today setting up Shanna's room. It came out really nice. I think it will make Shanna feel a little bit like home, as it has some of the things from our bedroom. I had a few emotional breakdowns in the last couple of days. It was just me letting out some of the emotions of sorrow and grief. But I continually remind myself of the witness that I received that this is the right thing to do, and the right time, and the right place. This helps to recenter me. And that was pretty typical of how I felt in that last couple of days before I moved Shanna. That last weekend, while we were at home, was filled with family and activity. And this is what I wrote that Saturday evening. It's hard to believe that I have less than 40 hours of living with Shanna and being her full-time caregiver. I will put her to bed just one more time. The door is closing quickly on this chapter of our story. It's hard to fathom that after almost 41 years of living together, we will live apart. While my heart aches, and I still get sad as I feel the finality of all of this, I still know that this is the right thing to do, and it's the right timing and the right place. I do realize that even though we have been living together for the last few years and months, that so much has changed. There is only small moments of fun and joy mixed in with moments of grief and loss, along with all the hard work and sadness that comes with seeing her fade and not being able to do much other than watch television. I truly hope, for Shanna's sake, that she thrives at QP, that she makes some friends and enjoys the activities they have there. I pray that she will trust the caregivers and not to miss me or our dog Dixie all that much. I hope that our frequent visits will be enough for her. I pray that we both can adjust to this new normal so that we can spend and share quality time together, if at only just a few hours at a time. Now, the one thing that I still have a bit of anxiety over is the awkwardness of discussing the fact that we do not live together. I will never bring that up Rather, I'll wait for a while and just ask if she likes it there. I so much want to talk to her about why I decided to do this, but that is just for me to relieve my guilt. It really won't do her any good. I don't know if she'll be able to fully understand it. It's only important that she feels safe and happy. As the time of moving her is almost here, I am realizing that the actual move will be hard, but the days that follow will be even harder for me. Full of anxiety. I hope the next day and a half goes smoothly and that I can keep control of my emotions. Yes, I was feeling a lot of trepidation about this move because I chose not to tell Shanna about it. I was following our doctor's recommendation. Okay, so Easter Sunday was her last day and night at home. I wrote a quick summary in my journal at the end of the day. Today we had the entire family. That's 21 of us, including all the grandkids, over for Easter dinner, and it was great. A bit loud and chaotic, but great to be with everyone. It was a bit sad to see each of our grandkids give Shanna a hug goodbye, as they knew what was going on. A few of them were quite emotional, especially the older ones. During the day, I had a few tough emotional moments, especially at the end of the day, as people were starting to leave. In fact, when everyone was gone, except for Emily, I started to put Shanna in her pajamas for the last time and broke down and started to cry. I wrote, I really hope I can get a good night's sleep and be rested for the big day tomorrow. My goal is to be in tune with the spirit and try not to worry or overthink things and just let things unfold naturally. I just gotten off the phone with my brother, and it was nice to have his prayers and support. I really have come to appreciate him in these last couple of years, even though he lives so far away. I finally wrote this. I was just watching Shanna sleep, and I had many happy thoughts and memories, and I was not sad. I just feel so much love for her at this time. I will miss seeing her so much every day, but I will now focus on having quality time with her, and I hope to be stress-free. I will always be her advocate, but I will no longer be her main caregiver. And I will just love her and do things to help her and help her to know that I still care very much for her. Well, as it turned out, I did not get a good night's sleep. In fact, I just got a few hours of sleep. As I laid in bed for the last time with her, my mind raced with all the different things that might happen the next day. I think totally exhausted, I finally fell asleep and got a few hours of sleep. Well, I woke up that next morning. I had a knot in my stomach, knowing what would happen. Let me first, before I give you the events of that day, tell you what our plan was. As directed by our doctor, I decided not to tell her, but I realized I could not do this by myself. I could not drop her off. And so I decided to invite my daughter, who lives in another state, to come and help me. And also, I felt inspired, and this was, again, God intervening and helping me, to have Mariah, who was our, at the time, in-home caregiver. She would come a couple times a week, for her to come with us and be there for the transition. And I would also have her visit Shanna there for the next month on the days that she normally would come to our home. And this all really helped and aided in the transition. So when we arrived at the facility, I told Shanna we were going out to lunch. So me, Emily, and Shanna went in our car. Mariah went in her car. And when Shanna got there, she was kind of excited. When we came in, they were doing music therapy, a sing-along, and she really loved that. She was just so into it. She just loves music. As we entered, she met the executive director, and Shanna was all smiles and even gave her a hug. Now, as we entered and we went into the memory care, everyone was making a fuss over Shanna, and she was quite a bit overwhelmed with all the attention she was getting. After the music was over, Shanna sat down that would become her chair for the next 11 months at the table to eat her meals at, with her new neighbor. Now, I was somewhat relieved that Shanna seemed to be at ease, but there was a growing knot in my stomach, and it grew bigger as time drew closer to I knew when I would leave her. We stayed an extra hour or so, and the time had come for me to leave. Now, I used the suggestion of telling her that I got a phone call and there was something wrong with the house, and that she would be there and that she would be safe, and that there was a room all ready for her and that Mariah would show her the room. Shanna looked at me with those big, beautiful blue eyes of hers and nodded like she understood. As I got up from the chair to leave, so did she. She stood up and started following me out. At that point, I just had to keep on walking, because I knew if I would have stopped and turned and looked at her, I would have totally fallen apart. Luckily, Emily got a hold of Shanna and sat her back down and reassured her that she would be okay, and followed me out the door just a minute later. Mariah stepped in and redirected Shanna for her to stay seated and stay included in the activity that was going on. And Mariah stayed with her for another 2 hours, introducing her to her room and helping Shanna get adjusted. And I will be forever grateful to Mariah for that. Well, as Emily and I walked out of the door, I was crying and a total mess. As we sat in the car, I totally fell apart. After a few minutes, Emily was able to drive us to my son's house, who was about a mile away. And there we stayed with a good portion of my family. And then we went out to have dinner, and then we came home. And it was good to spend that afternoon with my children and grandchildren. And they were doing their best to console me. But I remember thinking, they really don't understand what I'm going through. How could they? They were each dealing in their own way, losing their mother. Being surrounded by the family and having Emily staying till the next day really helped. The next 3 days, I was away from Shanna. I had asked Mariah to visit her 2 of those 3 days. And I was able to get really good reports after she left, as we talked on the phone. But for me, those 3 days were filled with worry and wondering what was going on with Shanna. I'd been so used to knowing every little detail of what was going on in her day, and now I was clueless. Now, interestingly enough, when you talk to doctors and you talk to people who run these facilities, they have varying opinions on how long you should stay away before you first visit your loved one. I think the most common is to stay away for a week or 2. Some even ask you to stay away for a month. While others will say, well, it's up to you. You can come the next day if you think it's going to help. I decided for me at this time, I would try and stay away for 3 days. Now, I called twice a day during those days trying to get reports. And I was often frustrated by the lack of detail I was able to get. Now, this was due to my not knowing how memory care facilities operate. And this particular one, being corporate run, had many layers, about 4 layers of management between the people who took care of my wife and the executive director. And it was difficult to get someone who had enough information to answer all my very detailed questions. But I was able to get bits and pieces, and they even sent a picture of Shanna doing an activity on her first full day there, smiling and happy, and that really calmed me down and make me feel better. And I was able to send this picture to my family, and we all breathed a sigh of relief. The first day Shanna was there on her own, this is what I reported in my journal. I spent most of the day with Emily and her daughter Journey, and it was fun, a great distraction. Emily went home in the afternoon, and when I got home from the airport and pulled into the garage, I totally lost it, because our dog Dixie kept circling our car looking for Shanna. The same thing happened yesterday when I returned home without Shanna, and it took Dixie a long time to calm down. I feel so bad for our dog Dixie. She really misses Shanna. How is she going to adjust? It's tough for me, and I'm having trouble staying upbeat at home. There are just so many reminders of Shanna around here. It makes me miss her so much. I continued to write this observation. I didn't realize how this would really affect me. I really miss her smile and all the small interactions we have on a daily basis. I guess I'm just going to have to adjust to having those happen much less often. I'm really struggling to allow myself to feel any joy with my newfound freedom. This first week was much harder on me than I thought. At least it seems to be going well for Shanna, and for that I am very grateful. And I kept busy over those next 2 days, and I was very relieved to get my reports from the staff and Mariah. They all seemed very positive. Well, Friday finally came, and I woke up that morning with a lot of anticipation, but also I was a little nervous of how it was going to be when I met Shanna for the first time after moving her, having been away for 3 days. Here's where the most tenderest mercy and greatest blessing occurred. Now, I'd like to remind you that more or less up until these last 6 months, there were very few moments where Shanna was connected to me, where she would allow me to hold her hand, give her a kiss or touch her. She was pretty distant. Now, there were a few times right before I moved her that she seemed to be able to connect, but for the most part, I had gone months without having her show any affection towards me. Here's what I wrote at the end of the day in my journal. Today, I went to visit Shanna for the first time. When I got there, she was out on an outing, and so I was able to snoop around her room and look around and just see how things looked. When Shanna got back from the outing with the group, I waited just a few moments before I would approach her. As I walked to the table she was sitting down at, we locked eyes. She jumped up and she ran over to me. She threw her arms around me and started kissing me, and we both cried tears of joy. I can remember I kept telling her that I just loved her so much. It was such a sweet reunion. She had not kissed me so much in such a long time. I think I cried first, and then it made her cry as well. I reassured her that whole visit that I would see her a lot more often. And she told me that things were pretty good there and that it was a nice place and that she felt pretty safe. I had noticed that the senior staff had really taken to her. We had a nice visit. She kept looking at me when I first arrived. I think she may have been a little confused. But as time went on, she seemed to get better. When it was time to say goodbye, I told her I would see her tomorrow, and it went a little bit better. Again, Mariah was there to help with the transition after I left, and that made a huge difference. Well, as I think about that visit, I actually have a picture of us putting a puzzle together, and she has this look on her face of happiness. Now, her first week that she was there was somewhat of a honeymoon period. I was visiting just about every day that second week, and there were some signs and some beginnings of some tough times. I recorded this in one of my journals. On her second Monday that she was there, when I arrived, Shanna was sitting in a chair crying. I had to spend a lot of time consoling her. We talked a little bit about her being there, and that I had prayed about it and that it was okay. I'm not sure it helped. When I started to leave, she was sad, and she started crying again, so I stayed a little longer. But she cried again. Mariah had come a little while afterwards, and she even had a hard time consoling her. It seems Shanna really misses me, and often is found clinging and hugging a picture of the two of us that I put in her room. This is so heartbreaking for me. That's what I wrote. Oftentimes during this period, and for the weeks and months to come, I would make it out the door and fall apart in the car, having emotional upheavals, especially after this particular visit. I remember saying out loud, "What have I done? What have I done?" And then I would catch myself and I would reassure myself that this was the right thing to do. I just need to have faith and confidence that things would work out. And during those first weeks, I would stay for about 4 or 5 hours for each visit, going 4 or 5 times a week. And this was good for both of us. And there was a lot of fun and joy mixed in with some sadness as we were both trying to figure out and adjust to living apart. So many things happened in the months and year that followed, and I'll get into that mostly in our next episode. But having it been a year and a half since this happened, it's amazing how my perspective has changed over time. And as I read in my journal and remember how I felt those first few weeks, I'm reminded of just how unprepared I was for this big change. I was focused and quite honestly distracted by all of the pre-move logistics and was very much concerned on how this would affect Shanna. And yet I did not consider how this would affect me. In hindsight, I think I was just avoiding the pain of thinking about this at the time. But as I was now going through it and experiencing it, there was just no way to avoid it, and it all came crashing down. Also looking back, I've come to realize that I have been very codependent. What I mean by that is when Shanna was sad, it would make me sad. When she was having a tough time, I would be depressed. When she was happy, I would feel relief and that she was okay, and I would feel better. Now, it took me many months of working with my coach and mentor and a grief counselor for me to start figuring this out. And once I had it figured out, it even took even more time and therapy and coaching to realize this and put it in its perspective. And I finally came to realize that I am the only one that can control my emotions, and that my emotions should not be connected to my environment nor Shanna's experiences or her environment. I could have no control over what was going on with her. I never could. I knew this even when I was taking care of her. She'd have bad days and there was nothing I can do about it. Oftentimes it was just the disease doing its thing. Now our environment and living arrangement had changed, and we both needed time to adapt and adjust. Again, in these 18 months since the move, much has happened. Her first 11 months was quite a roller coaster ride, filled with many high highs and some serious low lows, and many stops in between. All of this helped me to learn many, many lessons from these experiences that I continue to put in my journal. And these last 7 months after moving her to a different facility have been remarkably better. All of this in spite of the fact that the disease continues its progression and how it affects both of us. Shanna's abilities and capabilities have always continued to decrease. A lot happened in these last 7 months as well. She is extremely happy, almost all the time now. I'll get into those reasons why in the next couple of episodes. Now, as time has moved on, I increasingly have come to realize that moving her to memory care for us was the best thing for both of us, and that she quickly learned to adapt in her new home, a lot quicker than I did. And as I was releasing my feelings of guilt and dealing with all the emotions that came along, things would get better, and that I would learn again to live in joy and finally survive this part of our journey. Now, if I were telling this story close to the time that it happened, it would come across quite a bit different. It would be much heavier, filled with much sadness and heartache, as that was what I was dealing with quite a bit at that time. My heart began to heal, and I was able to shift my identity from a full-time caregiver back to being her husband and best friend, I was able to start to see things a little bit more clearer and realize just how blessed we have been to have our visits filled with joy and connection over time. By now, we have both gotten used to our time apart, and we treasure the time we spend together. Now, writing this episode and even telling you the story has been very emotional for me, as I was remembering all of those intense feelings that I was feeling around the move and during the move. Now, if this is where you happen to be at your journey, or maybe you're approaching this or considering this, I feel for you. I've been there. But I want you to know that you'll be able to make it through, and that there can be hope for you, that things might get better with you and your loved one. Now, if you've been through this yourself, would you please leave a comment on this episode on the Facebook page for the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast? I'll leave a link for this episode in the description. We'd love to hear what you learned from all of this during your transition, and what tips you might have for someone going through it as well. Now, in our next episode, I'll continue our story of dealing with severe stage Alzheimer's. I call that part 2. And this covers our first 11 months in memory care. There were more signs of being able to survive Alzheimer's, along with lots of lessons learned about dealing with memory care staff and memory care facilities, and I'll share some of those things with you. Thanks for watching an episode of the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I recommend that you watch the first 13 episodes in order. That way you can learn about our backstory. This will make understanding later episodes much easier. To help you with this, I've created a playlist. It's called Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast in Order. That way you can listen to all the episodes in the order that they were created. The mission of the Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast is to educate and inspire caregivers, family, and friends who are on their own unique journey down dementia road with their loved one. I would really appreciate it if you could share this episode to anyone who you feel would benefit from it. Additional ways for you to help us reach others are to hit the like button for this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to be notified of new episodes. All of these actions will encourage the YouTube algorithm to share this episode and podcast to other potential viewers.